Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 32nd episode of Visioncon Live, your go-to nerdy talk show. I'm your host, Zach Wilson, but you didn't come here to see me today. You came to see the woman of the hour. She's a female sole survivor from Fallout 4, Jack from the Mass Effect series, KO from OKKO, Let's Be Heroes, just to name a few. She's the legendary actress on a mission to make the world a better place. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome the one, the only, Courtney Taylor. Courtney, how you doing today?
Thank you. Can you just come with me everywhere? And
I mean,
make my introduction.
Easiest decision I've ever made. Courtney, I did want to start out. Now, I mentioned a lot of things, and we have a lot of things to cover today, but I want to start where it all began. Now, growing up, was this always the path you wanted to take, or did something happen earlier in life that kind of got you here today?
I didn't know voiceover existed, and so yes, all the things that I did when I was a kid fed into this, but I didn't know that it existed until much later. So I wanted to be a journalist. So I, like in college, I studied civics and broadcasting and stuff, and I took an acting class as kind of like an easy A, because I had done a little bit of acting when I was younger, and people were like, oh, you're funny or whatever, like they say that to every kid, and I was like, cool. And my sister was wanting to be an actor, and she was like, you cannot be an actor, well, because I am an actor. And I was like, okay, I'll find something else to do. So yeah, and so I took this class, and it was super hard, actually. It was really difficult for me. And then I was I was studying, and I applied for a program in New York, and the guy who was in charge of my audition, I was teaching like boxing classes and stuff at the time, and my voice was scratchier and lower probably than it is now, but he was like, I can't accept your application to this program because you have vocal cord nodes and your voice is terrible. You'll never be able to, project to the back of a theater. You have, and I came back to my teacher, in particular, my voice and speech teacher, a woman named Elizabeth Payne, who is actually a voice actor here in LA now. And she was like, I think you have a cool voice. You should try doing some voice acting classes. And I was like, I don't even know what that is. So I went and took a class, a commercial voice acting class. And I like to call it voice acting, not voiceover, because I feel like voiceover is what you do when you're like, reading a manual or something like that. Sure. But I didn't even know that this thing existed. And the second I got there, I was like, this is amazing. I get to talk. And I get to like do all the stuff that I did when I was little, which was like mimic people and make fun of my parents' accents. And I used to read out loud to my mom in San Francisco traffic. We would be driving home, and I would be reading books like, The Phantom Toll Booth or Harriet the Spy and all these things. And I also used to mimic commercials. I would sing commercial jingles and stuff like that. So now I look back on it and I'm like, oh God, Kari Waldron is a dear friend of mine, and she was like a freaking puppeteer and stuff, and a ventriloquist, and was like in theater classes and stuff like that. My path was definitely not that. My path was just like, hey, no one can get me to shut up, and I like to make fun of people, and somehow that all ended up going into the vortex that was voice acting. And I booked the first audition that I went on. I booked the commercial, and I just knew, like, I was like, this is a sign. There's a sign. And so much more than on-camera acting, being on a stage. I was like, this ticks all my boxes. It's, people aren't watching me. I can be as big of a dork as I want. They can cut out all my mistakes. I'm not self-conscious. There were so many like psychological things too that fit into all the other stuff, and like the capacity for play was so much greater. I did, I still do some on-camera acting, but it's so much like a very narrow slice of what I do. And so this other thing over here, I was like, I get to be a dragon, I get to be an elf, I get to be a crazy old lady from the South, and that's much more like my, ADD brain really responds way more to that than like, you're going to be a bartender at a strip club. And I'm like, okay, great.
Great. But
You know, and don't get me wrong, it's like, I'll do it, but it's not the only thing I want to do.
oh, sure, naturally. And it's interesting, they bring up voiceovers versus voice actors because, no offense and like, no, what's the word? Like nothing against, voiceover, but, voiceover and voice acting, not the same thing. Now, voice acting it's in the name, it's acting. So, you do have a lot more, what's up?
I've been doing it long enough where I remember people were like, don't you want to be a real actor?
What?
It's like, this is real acting.
I was about to say, especially in this digital renaissance, yeah, you are just as much an actor as, the traditional, on stage.
Well, and that's a different, no shade against, people who call themselves voiceover artists or whatever. Yeah. You can call it whatever you want, but, and believe me, I've read some manuals and it's hard as hell. There's an art to everything, and there's an art to all the different, clicks on the dial of acting, but they are different and they are equal, so theater acting is different than television acting is different than feature acting. And, to be able to do one of those things well, like right on. And if your jam is, reading manuals, then so great, like put your best into it. And even that's acting, like even that, like I sound like a dick, sorry. But like, I pretend to be like a knowledgeable doctor when I'm talking, when I'm reading some manuals. So that's acting too. I mean, we all act probably every day of our lives, every minute we're acting now.
Of course. Well, it's interesting that, kind of going up, you didn't take the traditional path to get where you are today, but you've definitely made massive waves in the industry. And I did want to touch on a few of key ones. The first one being, as we all know, and we would be remiss if we didn't talk about it, that, of course, is one of the most anticipated games in the last decade. That's, of course, Fallout 4. Now, you voice the main character, the female protagonist, which is revolutionary because until now, the series had practically a mute protagonist, aside from, a few grunts and, pains every now and again when you get hit. So how was it, being the voice of the main character of one of the most anticipated games in the last decade, if not in the last couple decades?
I mean, it was awesome. Of course, it's a freaking awesome franchise. I didn't know enough about, like, I guess it didn't get into my bones about that, like this was going to be a big deal, that it was going to be a voiced protag. Like I was like, who doesn't want a voice protagonist? Like, I was like, it's fun, right? Like you can always just put it on mute. Like, what's the big deal? And I learned, more about that later on. But initially I was just like, this is great. Initially, I didn't even know what I was working on. So I was just like, cool. And I came into the studio and they were like, I was thinking, player character, sweet, like I'm gonna get some work out of this. But I didn't know how many sessions it would be or anything like that. And then like they were like, turn around, and there was a binder that was like twice this size. And they were like, that's what you'll be working on for the next 2 years. And I was like, what? So like on many levels, it was, oh my God, I get to actually start a character like at the beginning of a game instead of kind of, being a companion character or kind of jumping in for a few days. That there's this like crafting that I get to do with the team. And then also the fact that like, I have work guaranteed. Like, I mean, not totally guaranteed. You can always get fired, but but as much as you can as an actor, like I was like, every day I'm unemployed. Like we're all day players. There's very rare that you're like, here is me signing a contract like you would if you were on a, like a soap or something like that, right? Or episodic television. Mm-hmm. So I was like I could actually like think that I, and I've gotten used to the whole like, well, I'm unemployed, better start again tomorrow. But yeah, it felt so comforting and like also so amazing that somebody would trust me with that. And it was great. It felt like we kind of hit our groove and they started writing kind of to our strengths. And Stuff got more sarcastic. And so, and that's the stuff that I'm a pretty salty in person. Um, and so it's always fun for me to be able to get those opportunities and that was so much like, there really was these opportunities to like have these moments about your kid and then also be a total dick. And then, so you got to like, as an actor, you really got to kind of like push in all directions. And I don't think it really hit me like there's this weird thing for me, at least, when someone tells me I'm going to be on some project that's a big deal, I'm like, cool. Okay, great. And then I kind of like file it in the back of my brain because I just get like myopic and start focusing on the work, and everything else kind of like falls away so that I don't think about it. And so when they had the announcement, I was there and there were so many freaking people like waiting. There was like a line around the block. And I remember coming out of my car and seeing this huge line of people and being like, oh, that's for this project. Well, now I'm going to be a little sick. I'm going to need to go back and do everything over again. Like,
oh no.
Because you're just like, oh, this is a big deal. And I knew it was a big deal, but not in my bones. Yeah,
sure. Maybe not like this big of a deal. And it's interesting you bring up the sassy answers to certain questions, because as we all know, for Fallout 4 especially, with every decision, you have about 3 to 4 different ways that the character can respond. You've got the altruistic kind of good response. You've got the bad, or in your words, the dick response. You've got the neutral response, and then of course you've got the sarcastic response. And I got to be honest, playing the game, you've got some winners. You definitely have. It's interesting and very impressive that you add to each different response. You add something that's very convincing in your portrayal, but then the sarcastic one, I mean, you got some bite to it. So is that just your natural kind of, the way you present yourself, the way you just kind of interact in like your everyday life, like kind of permeating into the character with those sarcastic responses?
You probably have to ask my friends. I don't really know how I present in life. I think, yeah, I mean, I'm definitely, as I get older, I'm learning to try and like, not like, it's funny. I saw a psychic a couple of weeks ago and he was like, you need to tread lighter in the world. And I was like, I don't know what the fuck that means. But yeah, like I realized like I've kind of spent a lot of my life kind of being like, sure. And it's okay to let people know that you're kind of a pudding cup on the inside. And if you hang out with me long enough, you will know that about me. But and don't tell anyone this.
Of course.
But I think that the tough girl stuff served me well as a kid, and as a teenager who was like a punk rock chick who got picked on and stuff. But now, like, you don't always have to walk around with your chin out, so the gift for me of being able to act as often as I do get to act is that I've realized that there's like all these other flavors and all of these other things that I have in me. And it's not like people are like, you know what? She's just sarcastic. I didn't really buy the stuff with the kid because I read the boards and I didn't see that. So, you can, it's just like life. You can be salty and loving and angry and kind and sad and all of those things. And it's still believable. And I just didn't want to be known as that girl all the time. So it was great to take this role on that had a lot of different circumstances. So I think for me, Fallout was a little bit of a turning point of like, oh, okay, like I don't have kids, but I can play roles where I feel deeply and people are gonna get that even though I don't have firsthand experience. Like having Brian, who played my male, male player, he has like, I don't know, 5,000 kids. But part of me was like, I don't want people to think that because I don't have children, I can't relate to this, or I can't
Sure.
be believable in this. And so I was really happy with the way that that I learned things, and that this game not only just from all the obvious things, but it gave me the opportunity to learn some stuff about myself. So that was cool.
Oh, that's so wonderful. I will say though, whatever forum that you read that they didn't believe that like you with the kid or all that. I don't know what game they were playing because.
No, they didn't say that. I was
Oh, they
actually
didn't say that.
thinking you shouldn't look on the boards ever.
Oh, got it.
Or you just shouldn't look on the boards, period,
Oh,
if you're
sure.
at the
Yeah.
movie. But yes, I did read the boards because once I knew that people were like,
Ah.
we've never had a voice pro tag, and I was like, let me just see if people are okay with me or if
Yeah.
I'm gonna get lynched. And they were okay. I mean, nobody said like, I didn't really buy it. So,
Well, good. Sure.
which is great because I actually spent those couple sessions with the opening and the closing of that game like in a puddle of tears.
Oh, no.
A puddle,
Well,
like snot, tears. Like those were some of the hardest sessions I've had, actually.
well, I mean, it
They
makes
cut
sense.
some of it out, damn it.
Well, it makes sense. It really was a turning point in your life where, as you said, taught you didn't have to always have your chin out. And, that's great. Now let's talk about a character who always has their chin out. And that, of course, or at least most of the time, and that's, of course, is the beloved, one of the most loved characters in the Mass Effect franchise. I want to talk about Jack. Now, Jack, the hard ass that we all know and love with a heart of gold at the end of the day. How much of Jack kind of, symbolizes you, or how much of you is definitely portrayed through Jack?
Jack is me. There was so much of me in Jack. I I'm also, I mean, I feel super lucky to have these like fence posts in my career that are these characters, because Jack is so close to my heart because just stuff that I went through as a teenager, getting just having some, I was a wild kid, and obviously, I didn't have the childhood that she had, but I was a wild kid and I did a lot of wild stuff. Um, and I did, cruise through life with my chin out. And so it's funny if I go back and I listen to her, like all of that, all those feelings and stuff, that's a lot of that is just me just like picking times in my life out where I just I didn't have the capacity to do anything but fight and be mad. And so, yeah, that was all really legit. And she is just very close to my heart. I love that I love the effect that she had on people. I, again, read the boards before the game came out and saw that people were like, I don't know who this is, but we hate her. She's ugly. She's bald. She's got tattoos, whatever. And I was like, no, wait, she's so cool. You like, don't say you're going to throw her out of the airlock. and then people were like, oh, I actually dig this chick. And I think that character was a bit of a turning point in games as well, or signified a new way of kind of thinking about women in games that was really important to me. She didn't look the same as, like there was the beautiful Miranda and then there was Jack. And I feel like so many women think that Miranda's where you need to be and there's room for everybody. And the fact that there was room for Jack in this universe, that they didn't make her completely like, this annoying, angry chick the whole time. There was a lot of thought put into her, and the writing was amazing. I very much love Brian Kendrigan and Patrick Weeks for making her amazing throughout 2 and 3, and that people, like girls, could relate to that. They could be like, that's actually me. I don't look like those other girls, or I don't feel like those other girls on the inside. I'm not, prim and proper, or maybe I'm just weird, and that's okay too. And that even if I'm all of those things, like my emotions are too big and I'm weird and I'm not traditionally beautiful, or, for whatever that means, that I can find love, I can find satisfaction, I can be happy. It tracks with like my own life. I can definitely, in almost all my characters, I find pretty deep psychological parallels. And Jack was healing for me because they like brought her home as a whole and complete character. And that was, I cried my last day of voicing her. I wanted there to be more for her. That is my only, and it's not a complaint, it's just a wish that, we could have had more of Jack, because I feel like she had a lot more to reveal, and a lot more to, there was a lot of people that could really relate to her, and a lot of dudes too were like so pro. I think it's just really important to have that variety in games, and to show that we're not cookie cutter, and it's okay to be, it's hilarious. I watch these shows, with these, like on Netflix, there's all these, like Dead to Me. People are like, oh my God, all these, I think that's the show with Christina Applegate. Yeah. And they're like, oh my God, she's so angry. She's so, we've never seen women on, television being like this. She's sort of a mess, and she's pissed all the time, and she's petty, and she's rotten. And I'm like, we've been doing this in games. Yeah. Like, we've been actually fleshing out angry women, or women who actually have a full slate of emotions for a while. Like, congratulations, television. Welcome to Water Slide.
Finally caught up. Well, for Jack, and I'm not just saying this because Jack is by far my favorite character in the series, but Jack's character development in a series where character development is just countless and so well crafted, Jack is by far the best character development for all the reasons that you said. But also the one I wanted to touch on was the fact that it showed people, both men, women, however you identify, that even at your lowest, you can get yourself, to the point that you are just the biggest badass in the galaxy with that heart of gold and surrounded by friends and loved ones. So it helped me, and granted I'm a cis white male, I've got it about as easy as one can get. So I can only imagine.
Head of hair, no less.
Of course, exactly. That's also another good point. So if it helped me, I can only imagine how it must have spoke to people who they felt bad for being weird, or were picked on, or countless other like situations. How good it must have felt seeing Jack triumph against all this adversity. And we have obviously a whole village to thank, but the leader of that village is definitely you. And Mass Effect in itself, a very progressive series, which actually leads me to the final character I want to dissect real quick, which is of course KO from OK KO Let's Be Heroes. Now,
so, like 180 degrees, just Jack.
Well, okay. Well, I want to make sure we have time for our big presentation at the end. So I do want to talk.
It's just like so funny because it's like, Jack, this badass biotic who swears the whole time and kills everybody. And then you're like, and also this little 6 to 11-year-old superhero you play.
Well, there's definitely progressive notes in each. Now, but speaking of OKKO, Let's Be Heroes, it has joined the pantheon of cartoons, at least modern cartoons, like Steven Universe, Adventure Time, and a bunch of others that, yes, they're entertaining us, but they're also definitely preaching to both, older and younger audience, a lot of progressive and open-minded mindsets. And so I did want to ask your experience voicing the lead and, kind of how you felt, being the, leader of this kind of progressive movement that this cartoon is kind of stuck in, or not stuck in, but like placed in.
Well, it's funny because it's there's so many, again, like you can draw weird parallels, not weird parallels, just parallels
Hello.
between KO and Jack, because KO's one of people's favorite storylines was TKO.
Oh yeah.
Was, you know, so KO is this great kid who wants to be a hero, and there's, you know, he signifies all of the like innocence and the best parts of us. And also this so important for kids. And I think what was important about Jack was that we can have emotions that are too big for us as kids, and learn how to, you know, learn coping mechanisms. And sometimes you don't get that as a kid, and then you go into adulthood and you still don't have those coping mechanisms. And so you have I just so related to, I mean, I remember being a little kid and feeling like my emotions were far too big for this teeny little body. And that, you know, I cried a lot. I was a very emotional kid, and I was angry. And so I was so glad that they touched on that. And the series itself is amazing. In fact, we interviewed Ian Jones Cordy and Rebecca Sugar on Nerds Vote, the IG show that we do. And they talked so much about, you know, content and how content was, like Rebecca Sugar put out shows with the help of Ian, you know, a show that had gay and bisexual, you know, people that then went into KO, you know, there was a precedent that was set that these are now normal things that wasn't in the beginning of Steven Universe. And then because Steven Universe happened, then KO could happen. And it was so like, it's all these two very disparate characters are part of shows or projects that like, that really push forward. No matter who you are worthy of love. No matter how you cope, no, you know, as long as you are trying, like you are moving in the right direction. And I think it's so important to underscore that with kids and also teenagers and adults who maybe aren't there yet. And so I'm super grateful to both of those projects for putting that forward. And I hope that I continue to like attract these kinds of projects, because I'm a huge LGBTQ ally. I talk a lot about it on social media, and also in the way that women are portrayed in media. And so I'm really glad to get the opportunity to work on these things. And, you know, I wish that we had had more time with KO. There was a lot of great stuff that was in the hopper, but I think they did a great job of kind of wrapping it up. And there was just a great, you know, it was a great homage to a lot of the things that we love in just media over the years. And I think Ian and Toby and Christy Reed, the director, Toby Jones, producer, executive producer, just that content, putting out that kind of content, you know, is like, I can't wait to see what they're working on again, because I so salute that when I was a kid, you know, having two moms was weird. Having a gay dad was weird. And I grew up in San Francisco, and people still, you know, got grief about it. And that whatever your household is, as long as it is a loving household, it is a great household. As long as you are a good person and you are working to make yourself better, you know, you are doing the best you can, and you are, no matter who you are worthy of love and support. So sometimes it looks like Jack, and sometimes it looks like KO.
But it comes in all forms, and you know, representation is important. It's just as important now as it was back then. I mean, yes, it's a lot better than it once was, but we're still not there. So, you know, all the representation, you know, that we can muster, I mean, it's very important, you know, like I said, as it is now, right as it is back then. But
it's so important, and I'll just throw this in, that if you are people who identify in, you know, those communities, if you love people that identify in those communities, like, you have got to support them. Like, you have got to, as consumers, we have voices. If you like what you see on television, you need to let those people know through social media. We all have a phone, and like, people listen to fans, producers listen to fans, money guys listen to fans. If you are loving a show or a game or whatever, speak it, because there's been for a long time in media, this idea that we as consumers can't handle a same-sex marriage or a kiss in a commercial between people of different ethnicities, or it's not true. And so we need to let people know that they don't need to dumb us down, and that we are more accepting and more this idea of like, we don't need to be coddled. We are more accepting than people give us credit for. We're smarter than people give us credit for. And like no other time in history, now you can reach out to the creators of shows, reach out to the people at Cartoon Network, at Fox, at, wherever, and actually get responses and get your voice known. And also vote, vote for people who support the people in the communities that you are in, or that the people that, that you love are in. It is so important.
Yeah, and support is all that matters. And by voting, you definitely support them, which is a perfect segue into my last thing I want to talk about. But before that, guys, plenty of you have already messaged Visioncon directly your viewers' comments and questions. You still got time to do so, but we are on our final segment before viewers' comments and questions. So with that said, ladies and gentlemen, last week when we interviewed Carolina Ravassa, I mentioned to her that I had 2 passion projects that I recently fell in love with. One was her Kickstarter campaign for her film, Morgan's Mask, a cosplay film. The second project was Nerds Vote. Now, I want to bring up a little presentation that we put together. Now, Nerds Vote, for those of you who don't know what that is, the founder is the guest right before us, is Courtney Taylor. Now, before we show the actual website, I did want to show some of your guys' merch displayed by some faces that some of you actually might recognize.
One of the most gorgeous models, the smartest, most amazing people. Who are they? Who's that?
Oh, just, Nolan North and Troy Baker, I think.
Nolan and Troy. Oh, and there's our JP Karliak on the left is my co-founder of Nerds Vote. And look at Julie Nathanson, Kari Walgren, Matt Mercer, Neil. I love all these people.
Right, of course, Neil Kaplan, fan of the show, recognized him.
I'm sure he hasn't ironed in weeks, but that's fine. Also, Yuri hasn't ironed the shirt. We've got a trend going here now, guys. Oh, my baby. Liam O'Brien in his limited edition hat.
I was about to say, I was looking for that hat earlier, and I was like, I couldn't find it.
Doesn't exist anymore. Keith, looking good. Robbie. Look at him, so demure.
Well, and I mentioned this when he was on the show, a couple moons ago. I didn't realize he was that jacked.
I don't think he was. I think this is like COVID jacked.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Sissy Jones. That's my girl right there.
Hell yeah.
She's my one wife.
In 2 moons, actually, Sissy Jones will be on the show, guys. So look out for her.
Oh, it's Batman.
The man himself.
Love Kevin. Oh, Veronica and her lovely daughter looking in their stylish new shirts.
Hell yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Carolina doing the thing. I mean, we're so lucky. Fans. Steve Bloom? Is it Steve Bloom?
Yeah, it's Steve Bloom, yeah. I
was like, I can't tell. He's eating the paper. It's got to be Steve.
Well, there was a full body one that I found on Google, but it was like low res, but I couldn't find it in high res, so I used this one. But yeah. All right, so then let's go ahead and show the actual website. Give me just one second, guys. All right, so here it is in all of its glory. So, Courtney, give us the rundown about what Nerds Vote is.
Well, we started Nerds Vote when conventions were a thing, way back when. Where we wanted to get the voting word out to nerds of all kinds, gamers, people who love animation, cosplayers. And we decided that I had been kind of trying to register people to vote at different conventions. And we came together. I asked Mary Elizabeth McGlynn and JP Karliak to join me because I obviously just am great at ideas and no follow through. So I got them to help me out. And we started this little, operation. And now what we do is we encourage, the idea was that if you had a conversation or an interaction with somebody whose work you really appreciated about voting, then maybe you would take voting more seriously, right? So we started getting notable nerds who you just saw at conventions, giving out stickers and talking to people who were in their autograph lines about the importance of voting. And it's a nonpartisan group, and all we want you to do is just get out and vote. That is our mission. So we believe that nerds are really creative, interesting people who are smart, and they should be voting. Y'all should be voting because you guys are the problem solvers, and people who traditionally haven't had a voice. And now, we all as Americans have a voice, and we all need to use it. So we just thought we would try and, make it more fun and interesting. And we started partnering with Headcount and Ballot Ready and now Voting Study Party. And we have a show called Between Two Nerds, where JP and I interview all of these wonderful, notable nerds, like Roger Craig Smith and, Kari Payton and Ashley Birch and everybody that you guys love. And we just talk about kind of what your experience is with voting, how you vote, like by mail or whatever. We ask questions, we take questions from the audience. It's super kickback. Really, we're just trying to make voting like something like a lifestyle, not a trend. And just make it fun, figure out ways to make it fun. And if that means, sporting your gear, if that means we started doing, we did a ballot party with the kids from Critical Role a couple of years ago. So we have this guide on our website that you can get together with friends with your ballots, divvy up the work, have cocktails if you're of age. And this is a whole how-to guide just to, split up the work and then circle back around with your friends, basically share what you've learned. And then you don't have to reach a consensus. You just have to be smarter than when you got to the party. And that way, people individually are not having to recreate the same work. You're sharing the load, and then you're all going to end up being more educated and involved voters. And that's really what we want, because the important thing about voting is that it's not just once that you vote. You have to vote every time, and you have to be in, voting in state and local as well as federal. And we need to vote consistently in order to make a real impact. And so if you can do that with your family by using this guide, or your friends over Zoom or socially distant, hopefully at some point we'll be able to all sit around a table and have vote floats and things like that as we do this. But it's just just to reimagine this idea that people die for the right to vote, and we all have it. So, set it and forget it. Politics are not a thing anymore. It's time to, be invested in how we live in this country of ours. So this is our sort of little go-to, which is nerdsvote.com. You can get all the swag you want. You can get the ballot party guide, bumper stickers. If you're a cross stitcher, we've got some cross stitch maps, because there's nerds for everything. And so the cross stitch nerds, we hear you, we service you as well. Yeah, we just want, to keep the conversation going. And even though the election is on November 3rd, and I hope you guys have made your voting plan already as how you're going to vote and how you're, where you're going to park, and if you're going in person, all that kind of stuff, that you're packing a lunch and a phone charger, but that after the 3rd, that this is still a thing. It's not just every 4 years when we're voting for president. And our country needs us. We have this amazing country, and we need to love and care for it. And one of the ways we do that is by voting and being involved on many levels. So I hope that you guys are inspired. You can follow us. You can check out the site. You can follow us on social media. We have lots and lots of information, and about voting in your area. Things like ballot tracks here in California and some other states where you can actually like watch your ballot going like a pizza delivery. We promote 866 Our Vote, which is a hotline you can call if you have any problems with voting. So put that in your phone right away, because if you have problems on the day of, you want to make sure that, or now, if you just don't know what's going on, call 866 Our Vote or hit us up on social media and we will guide you. But there's tons of resources, and there's just voting has we got to do it, and it's hard this year. It's hard, and it's okay, because sometimes we have to do hard things to kick ass.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do the thing.
The thing that I love so much about it is you're really doing a big, major civic duty to the people, to the American people, because you're making something that is so crucial of our way of life so fun, and really doing a big movement behind it, to the point, and I have you to thank for this, because you actually reminded me that this was many moons ago, that I had to update my voter registration status in order to be able to vote for this. So if it were not for you, I mean, your very own Zach Wilson might not have been able to vote this year. So we have.
And that would have been horrible.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, egg on my face.
Just, that makes me so happy, because sometimes I do feel like I'm, what do they call it? Peeing in the ocean or something, where I'm like, I don't know if this is actually going anywhere, because we register people. You can register through our site, but it also goes through headcount. So it's great to hear your feedback. I'm dying to hear your stories and see your pictures on social media, because these are the things in my life that I love, are like actors, people of all stripes, and civic engagement. Like, these are things I'm really passionate about, and to have it all come together beautifully and in a way where people can really get behind it. I just am like, if I hear stuff like that story, I just go, all of the sleepless nights, all of the auditions that I missed because I was like, nope, Nerds Vote needs me.
Nerds Vote needs me. Well, yeah, when I found out about it, and like you emailed me back that, yeah, you'd be on the show, I was like, yeah, I really want to talk about Nerds, blah, 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 blah. And I was at a mall, and then I was thought to myself, oh shit, I need to update my voter registration status. And so I went, and thankfully I got in there just in the nick of time. But so yes. So guys, make sure to check out Nerds Vote. I've got links both in the live chat, and if you're watching this later on YouTube, down in the description box below. And speaking on that, ladies and gentlemen, now is your last chance to get in any viewers, comments, and questions you've got, and message them to Visioncon, because ladies and gentlemen, we're in the plug zone. Courtney Taylor. Now is your chance to plug, promote, advertise, whatever verb you want to use, anything you want. The floor is yours.
Well, you must hate having to deal with voice actors in this, because unfortunately we have so much stuff that we should be able to plug, but we can't. But things I can plug, let's see. Bug Snacks is coming out next month, which is a really cute video game. I play some delicious characters. What else? Vampire Bloodlines. That's coming out sometime. We don't know when, because it got pushed back. So Vampire Bloodlines 2. I'm sorry, I don't know anything.
How can the folks at home who want more from Courtney Taylor or Nerds Vote or both can kind of get their daily dose? Can they follow you anywhere on social media?
Yes, you can. You can follow at Nerds Vote across social media. If you actually do Facebook, it's Nerds Vote USA. My name is spelled Courtenay. It's kind of fancy. I'm sure it's somewhere in there. But it's Courtenay, make sure, because the other Courtney Taylor is someone different. At Courtney Taylor on Twitter, and at Courtney Taylor LA on Instagram. We do the Between Two Nerds show at 6 o'clock on Tuesdays and 2 o'clock on Thursdays on Nerds Vote Instagram Live. There's a lot of cross-posting between me and Nerds Vote. We do have a social media director, but I get in there sometimes and make her rip her hair out. And so yeah, you can definitely find us, and that is where I post stuff as soon as I can talk about it. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else. That is just, you got to follow me on social media, and And then, because I'm like, surprise! I'm in this game that came out yesterday. So lame, but I try. God, I try.
Sure. Well, guys, all of those links, like I said, both in the live chat, or if you're watching us later on YouTube, down in the description box below. And with that, we're out of the plug zone and right into viewers' comments and questions. And we've only got time for a few, so I've compiled a list of some of the big ones. So I want to first start out with Raylene, who chimed in. And this isn't so much a question, more as a statement. And so they said, I'm really happy you were the voice of the female sole survivor, because as someone who isn't super emotional and likes to play a more sarcastic route, it was like the one and only game where I felt like I was able to connect to the voice because you did such a great job at it. You just really did an amazing job as making the female SS sound badass and in charge instead of kind of a whiny like it seems people tend to do female characters. I just really appreciated it. I did want to spotlight that one.
That's great. Thank you very much, Raylene. It's funny, they did get, Brian is a very sweet, like soft, cuddly dude. And so I loved the fact that they kind of, switched the tropes of like, and I am definitely way meaner than Brian. Brian is really nice and like chill dude. And I'm like, "Bleh!" And so I loved that they kind of turned it on its head because that's real. There are very nice, cuddly men and there are sarcastic, spicy women. And like, let's just everybody get represented.
Sure. Aw. Well, Allison tuned in and wanted to know, aside from voice acting, what are some of your favorite hobbies?
Eating. I love eating. I used to love to travel. My mom was a flight attendant long time ago, and so I grew up in a house that had all kinds of amazing sort of artifacts from the different countries that she flew to when she did that job, and I always was fascinated with travel. I am in the process of the same psychic told me that I should have some fun with music, and I am actually, my boyfriend is a drummer, and I am learning a little bit of the ukulele. I'm trying, and I'm singing, not well, but you know what? Like I said, you just got to try and be a good person. I sing, and my dogs come running out from a dead sleep and start barking at me, so I know it's awesome. I know they love it. Yeah. I mean, that's it for right now. I'm like, I used to like to exercise, and then I forgot about that and just started eating.
Sure.
I like baking.
Okay. Well, Tyler wanted to know, this is more of a slightly serious topic. Is it ever hard dealing with people whose political inclinations vastly differ from yours?
Yes, because I feel like my politics are grounded in taking care of people, recognizing people, supporting people, and understanding that everyone's different, but we all deserve equal say, equal rights. So if somebody's going to go 100% against that, like I have a hard time with that. There are some people I will not engage with. None of this like white supremacy shit, none of this misogyny, none of this, we don't have a right to decide what happens with our bodies, stuff like that. That's just a non-starter for me. But I believe that it's important to find people who you can have civil, kind conversations with, because the only way that we're going to move this country forward, and I think is, and we all want to move this country forward, with the exception of a few people, that we find common ground. We find common ground, and we have to start there. And I do believe that if you are running up against someone who really can't, I just share my stories. Like I grew up as a very low income kid in San Francisco. I am a product of the welfare system. My mom used food stamps. My mom was a single mom. She was not a welfare queen, things like that. I have pre-existing conditions. So I share my story with people when I've had friends die from gun violence. So I have parents that are from countries that have national health care. So I've had people in my family benefit very much from national health care. So once we start talking about personal experiences and bringing that to the table, I think we'll be able to find common ground, because it's really hard to disagree with someone when you're like, hey, this is my experience, or hey, this is my best friend is gay and I'm a huge ally and I have a problem with you trying to take away their rights, or pointing out that like, hey, you actually have a gay son. Do you love your straight son more than your gay son? Because right now you're voting for somebody who thinks it's okay to take away your gay son's rights. Like, get people to think about it in their, and if that doesn't work, start channeling your biotics. No, I'm just kidding. Some people you just can't have a conversation with,
Well, because I mean, there is a difference between, having a differential opinion when it comes, to certain politics, and then just like how you described, misogyny, racism, xenophobia, misogyny, all those sort of things. I mean, that's just being a bad person. That's just being a dick, not even worse than a dick, and just being evil at that point.
Well, here's the thing though. I do ask people, I have gotten into conversations and I want to know why you feel that way. That's the other thing is like, I try not to write people off. There are a few people that that I won't engage with, but for the most part, if you have stuff to say about, gun control and things like that, you may have had something happen in your past where you feel like you need to have that, I want to know about that kind of stuff. I need to understand too. So I try not to just kind of be like, well, you're just, maybe you don't know any gay people. Yes, you do. Maybe you don't know that you don't know. You don't know that you know gay people, but it's that kind of stuff to point out like, hey, how can you watch RuPaul and love Drag Race, but then think it's okay for somebody to get their ass beat for being trans or for, or being in drag? Like, those are all parts of that community. So when you can't rejoice in Black culture and love rap music and then think that, it's okay to suppress the votes of Black people.
Yeah, openly condemn them.
You can't cherry pick a community.
Yeah.
You can, but that shit's gonna stop.
Yeah.
That ultimately you have to uplift that community, and it's not yours for the taking. It's yours to celebrate and support. Mm-hmm. And so I think a lot of times, actually, I use the example of the gay son and the straight son. That's a real life example of somebody in someone's I know's family, and to point that out and say, hey, like, this person is trying to take away. Why is it okay for one son to not have these rights, and don't you love them equally? And then it's like, oh, I didn't really think about it that way.
Well, maybe I need to tone it down and maybe not be so quick to burn a bridge then. Maybe
we all have fatigue, we all have fatigue.
It does get draining, but maybe if people don't know what they're doing is wrong, maybe they'll never change, I guess.
I think here's the thing. I think it's worth a conversation. Mm-hmm. And if somebody is just like, nope, I just hate, fill in the blanks, I have no reason for it, then you're like, well, you're kind of just saying that you're a dick.
Then I can burn the bridge.
And you're like, you know what? Yeah. I'll go talk to my friend over here, have a little cocktail, and talk about what an idiot you are. Okay.
Hell yeah. My favorite pastime. All righty, we have time for one more question, guys, and I saved this one because I think it's a good one to leave off on. Jennifer wrote in and said, hi, Courtney. Coming from a former punk girl who kind of got made fun of herself, does it ever get better when the days seem like they're pretty rough?
Yes, Jennifer, it absolutely does. I will say, I think that everything, and not to like, oh, poor me, like, I didn't have I have a great life, but the things that make you different, the things that make people pick on you or bully you or whatever crap you're going through right now are the things that are going to end up being your superpower later. It might be later, it might be that you just need to find your tribe, but I was a weird kid and a mouthy kid, and I had pink hair long before it was cute, and that mindset that I had, I think 100% serves me in playing pretend, playing dress up, being creative. I didn't have the outlets that people have now. We didn't have conventions and cosplay and stuff like that. But I think it's so important. And I know when someone's like kicking your ass every day after school, or, making you feel bad about who you are, what you're into, it's really hard to see beyond that. But just know that, like, there's a million people. You can reach out to me on social media. There's almost everyone in voiceover, all these voice actors are, we were nerds and geeks and freaks, and now we get to channel that, costume designers, people who make cartoons, people who make art, people who, just have creative ways of thinking. Everybody has a story about awful times, and those things will serve you. I guarantee you. I'll bet you $100. So come find me in 50 years, and if things haven't gotten better yet, I'll give you $100. But I know that they will, because it really is. And you're going to look back and you're going to go like, all those people that were mean to me.
Screw it.
How you doing?
Can't think of a better way to end off on that. So, ladies and gentlemen, this has been episode 32 of Visioncon Live. Now, before we wrap things up, Courtney, any final thoughts to leave us on?
Just thank you guys for being interested. Thank you guys, stay curious. Stay curious, keep trying to know more, explore more. Thank you for voting. And thank you for showing up to this and watching this. I'm so thankful that I get to be in a line of work where I get to interact with people like you, Zach, and the people that I get to meet at conventions and get to do this work. And, just be kind and be curious, and go kick some ass.
Oh, well, before I cry.
All go to your purse and go kick some ass.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been episode 32 of Visioncon Live. I, of course, am your host, Zach Wilson, but much more importantly, this has been my special guest, Courtney Taylor. Make sure to check out the links in the description box below, and always remember, guys, that life's better when you have friends to share it with.